Match Monday is back on BYU Sports Nation. ESPN college football insider and expert Trevor Matich is joining us to discuss what in the world happened between BYU and Notre Dame in Las Vegas. Trevor, first of all, hope you had a nice weekend. How are you?
You know what? I'm good. And the both of you look fantastic, like you're about to join the Provo bobsled team. So congratulations on that. That's
USA.
Wonderful. Listen,
go.
Now that BYU's out of the rankings, we got to look at other stuff. So
there you go. Well, bobsled is, I mean, there's a lot of places you could be on the bobsled team now.
This is it's a great point you bring up. We'll continue this conversation once we have finished the BYU football conversation. So let's go there, Trevor. And you were vocal on Twitter on Saturday, much like a lot of BYU fans were, about BYU's slow start again, their inability to defend Michael Mayer, the All-American tight end for Notre Dame, among other things. Ultimately, where do you feel BYU fell short in the game against Notre Dame?
Execution. This feels ugly, doesn't it? But overall, BYU did a lot of really good things. I mean, I went back over my notes and looked at some of the highlights. BYU did a lot of really, really good things. And as you watch this game, a lot of those things weren't taken into account. They didn't give them credit for it. But they had a lot to do with the fact that BYU was within one score at the end with a chance to possibly tie this thing up. So we start there. But execution was very poor. And let me just start with this. On defense did a lot of good things. But there were too many times when they beat themselves. For example, there was a guy rushing off the offensive right side. And he went upfield, he contained the quarterback, and then he decided to fold inside. He had contained, or somebody else had contained and needed to do a late loop out to replace him. Either way, there was a busted assignment on contain. Notre Dame quarterback Drew Pine escaped out and made a big play to continue a drive. Earlier in the game, a very similar thing happened where the defender went inside that had contained. He wasn't blocked in there, he just went in there. And these are things that BYU can't afford to do against a team like Notre Dame. It's one thing if the other side is better than you. It's one thing if the other player is better than you. I get that. I've been in that situation a lot. But you need to make sure that you're in the right place, doing the right thing, so that if they win, they beat you. And BYU too many times opened the gate for Notre Dame to make it easy on.
Trevor, Jaron Hall did not play well. In fact, it was probably his worst game as a Coug. 9 completions in the game. Slow start. That first throw was weird with an interception. What was different in your opinion from him? Because after the game, he admitted he was injured earlier in the week, but said he was 100% during the game.
It's hard to say how much an injury might have affected him. I mean, that first throw was really eye-opening because it is a play that they had practiced all week that they would open the game with. They talked about it the night before the game. This is our first play. We'll hit a deep strike down the right sideline. It'll be fantastic. And then it was either a miscommunication where the receiver thought it was a go route and the quarterback was throwing a back shoulder, or it was a problem with arm strength and his arm wasn't ready to go yet. And it wasn't fully warmed up, and he was banged up a lot more than anybody is admitting. So I don't know which of those things is true. I do know that in the second half, when they started to attack a little bit farther down the field in the middle, they had a lot of success. But the first half really put them so far behind the curve that they needed a miraculous comeback in the second half to even have a chance. And so I know what they're saying about him, or what he's saying about him not being banged up. The coaches say something different. But I'm a little worried that he might be being a little bit too brave, and he may be a little more banged up than he's admitting. And that could be a problem going forward if he doesn't get that healed.
Trevor Matich of ESPN is with us on BYU Sports Nation. To BYU's credit, Trevor, and you pointed out much better second half. The Cougars are down 5, have the ball after a Max Tooley interception, and are driving, but just couldn't piece together some of those key plays late in the game. Overall in the second half, and especially late in the fourth quarter, what did BYU need to do differently to try and just get Pet to survive and steal this game away from Notre Dame?
Well, one of the things they could have done was gone against expectations a little bit more. Notre Dame was coming up to gum up the running game, and BYU still was able to run statistically pretty well. They kept safeties deep so they wouldn't get burned over the top, but that left a lot of space between the line of scrimmage and the linebackers coming up and the deep safeties. And in the second half, Hall exploited that. Cody Epps exploited that. Goodness gracious, there was space there, but BYU hit that space. They found it. But there were plays where, like, for example, on that critical 4th and 1 where they ran off right tackle and got stuffed, that was a play that they've used in the past. Notre Dame knew it was a play they used in the past. The linebacker, who was kind of over the center, scraped over to the right and got there before the offensive lineman could come off his combo block and pick him up. And he's the one that really initially stopped that play because Notre Dame expected it. And it's one thing to say, look, we have a big physical offensive line. This is what we do best. We're going to go ahead and do what we do best. That's really good. But if you're in a game against an opponent that can put up a fair fight against you, sometimes it might be good to go against that stereotype and do something else. There were plays that were open for the receivers at the second level. I'm thinking they could have exploited that even more.
Yeah, 9 completions, a very low number from Jaron Hall. BYU finally got it going, but it was a little too late. The slow start was BYU's undoing. Michael Mayer was dominant. 15 targets, 11 catches, 118 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's the Notre Dame record for career receptions, I believe, in the game. He was tough to stop. How would you have recommended BYU stopping him next time or limiting him?
Well, Jeremy, if Godzilla and King Kong had a baby, it would be Michael Mayer. He's just too big, too strong, too much speed for his size. And BYU's got a very athletic group of linebackers and safeties. The problem is that Mayer's just that much bigger. And so they really did almost everything they needed to do. A lot of his catches were contested. And he just is the bigger, stronger guy. There's not much you can do about that. But there were some plays where he was open, way too open. And I think BYU could have done a better job to bracket him and then be vulnerable in other places and see if Drew Pine, the Notre Dame quarterback, could have exploited that. As it was, he completed a few passes to other folks, but half of Pine's completions, 11 out of 22 completions, went to Michael Mayer. And the interception that Max Tooley got in the second half was a play like I just described. They had a defender over the top of him, and then Tooley came in underneath, and they squeezed him. They bracketed him. So it had to be a perfect pass, and it wasn't, and it was picked off. There were too many times when they lost sight of him, or at least it appeared that they lost sight of him, because they let him get into an open space instead of squeezing those zones down to make sure that the space wasn't that clear for an easy throw by the quarterback.
Trevor, BYU drops out of the Associated Press poll for the first time, I believe, in 12 consecutive polls. No longer ranked. Arkansas coming to Provo this Saturday. In your opinion, what's the realistic ceiling for this BYU football team now that they're 4-2 and just outside the top 25?
Well, at this point, they still can be a 9 or 10 win team. They could even be an 11 win team. If you look at their schedule going forward, they're favored by ESPN's Football Power Index, FPI, to beat Arkansas. But I think FPI might be underselling Arkansas a little bit. If they can get past Arkansas, a 10-win regular season is there, and it gives them a chance to get to 11 if in a bowl game. So this still could be a very, very good season, and a very good season from a win-loss standpoint against a very difficult Power 5 schedule that they have. So right now it feels bad. It feels really bad for BYU fans. But this season is still young, and there's still a lot to play for. And this team can still have one of the better seasons we've had in recent memory. But that Arkansas game is a big hurdle because KJ Jefferson, their quarterback, is, he missed last week against Mississippi State. Looks like he'll be back. And even if he's not, the backup, Hornsby, was absolutely phenomenal against Mississippi State for the most part. He made some mistakes, but he's a playmaker himself as a backup quarterback for Arkansas. So BYU, if they can get past this game, this can still be a stellar season.
Yeah, and BYU's not trending in a direction where 10 wins feels like it's probably going to happen, right? That's perhaps the issue the last couple of games. Let's spend some time.
But they're good enough to do it.
Sure, yes. They just need to jump out of that trend and show us a little more consistency and show up in the first half like you talked about. Okay, let's spend some time talking about Taysom Hill because that was a crazy game yesterday, and Zach Wilson. Taysom Hill scores 4 touchdowns, 3 rushing, 1 passing, fumble recovery, 6-9 kickoff returns. I looked on Pro Football Reference, Trevor. I couldn't find a single player ever having those stats in a game in NFL history. What did you see from Taysom Hill, and can he possibly play better than that in a game?
He can play that way every week if they let him. It's just a matter of the staff allowing him to maximize what he can do. And when you see them give him those opportunities, you see him maximize those opportunities. But it's really not up to him. It's the staff. He's got this in him all the time. And you see flashes of this this playmaking. You see flashes of this versatility all the time, but then they pull him back. Okay, well, that's a choice of the coaching staff. So, and even the one pass that he threw, the touchdown pass, he threaded it in there on a dart to a vertical route into the end zone with defenders converging on both sides. It was a fantastic throw. Okay, thanks, Taysom. You don't need to throw anymore. Well, okay, then he won't throw anymore, but he can do other stuff. And so he's so much fun to watch because of that, but he's also fun to watch mostly because of his joy for the game. I mean, you can see in his face and his smile, he's so joyful. And so he's entertaining, not necessarily even because of the playmaking that he does, but because of how entertaining he is and how joyful he is.
For sure. An all-time performance. And from a guy that you wondered, 5-6 years ago if he was ever going to play football again, given his injury past. So it's really, really cool to watch that come to fruition. Now we move our attention to Zach Wilson, the other BYU quarterback in the league right now, Trevor. And the Jets are 3-2. Zach Wilson is 2-0 as a starter. Are the Jets good? Are they legitimately good with Zach Wilson?
With Zach Wilson, they're legitimately a threat. And there's two reasons. One is the way he can attack the field. He can get the ball deep. He can get the ball driven to the sidelines. He makes the defense defend every inch of that field. And because of that, it creates more space for receivers that might not be great receivers, but that are good receivers to be able to work and make plays. So because of, and also as a runner, he's able to burn people if they bring the pass rush too fast and they open up a pass rushing lane somewhere where he can squirt through and run the ball. So these are things that make him dangerous. Are the Jets good? They're not good yet, but you can see what they can be as they continue to build pieces around Zach Wilson because of his ability to attack everywhere. And really the best quarterbacks in the league have this ability. It's not just that they're able to read a defense and go where the defense is soft. I mean, that's an important prerequisite. But then physically, if you can add to that the physical ability to force them to do everything at once, then on defense, you really need 12 defenders, not 11, in order to defend it all. And Wilson puts them in that kind of a situation.
And between Taysom Hill, Zach Wilson, Jamal Williams, Fred Warner, and others, it's a good time for the Cougs in the NFL. Trevor, well said. We appreciate the insight. And here's to a much better performance for BYU against another Power 5 opponent, Arkansas, this Saturday night.
Yeah, they'll need to. And keep in mind this about Arkansas. They're third in the SEC in rushing. So defense, buckle up. And they're first in the SEC in sacks. They give up a lot of passing yards, but they get after the quarterback. So this will be a line of scrimmage game.